Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Mesha McKittrick. This is a podcast where I believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And we also believe that we are vibrational beings and we can use sound to shift our vibrational state of being. I cannot wait to get into that with you today. And we also have a guest that I'm excited to introduce you to. Before we jump into the episode, I want to tell you about my newest discovery, and that is rebounding. I am hooked. I love it, you guys. Last week, I tried like a real rebounding workout video. I know it sounds like 2020, right? It's kind of a funny thing to say, but a lot of times when we do things at home, maybe it sounds a little bit more 2020. But I love it because it actually saves me so much time getting to the gym and back. And I get so much out of a short workout. I'm actually super impressed with what Jump Sport Fitness has to offer. Their products are fantastic. And then they have this great selection of workout videos that you also get to choose, as a part of the whole experience. The thing that I feel like I like the most is, well, it's hard to decide because it gives me such a dose of energy. And actually just throughout my day, if I jump a little bit, especially if I'm kind of feeling a little bit of a lull in my creativity and I jump on my rebounder and just kind of jump for just a couple of minutes, it really increases that. But overall for my workouts, I feel like I get so much from them. Like it really is super effective and it's really easy on my joints, which I love. I used to be this girl who ran half marathons and I ran every morning and it was just a little bit too much for my body. And I'm really totally jamming with this new way of really getting my blood flowing. And I was doing all this research around rebounding now that it's kind of a part of my world. And I'm so impressed with the way that our calves are like our second heart and they pump all of that goodness back up into our body that we need to really create a very effective flow inside of our body. They say that rebounding naturally really ignites our lymphatic system and it does so many great things for us. And like I said, I think it, for me, gives me a lot of energy, keeps my body young. And, on top of it being a very effective workout, I'm just so impressed. So I'll put the link to the Jump Sport Fitness rebounder that I love so much in the show notes so you can check it out if it calls to you. Today is book club, my friend. I am so pumped to go over this book. You'll probably remember that I talked about it a couple of months ago. Maybe some of you picked it up and read it. It is fascinating. And it's not really like a novel or historical fiction that we're reviewing here. This is legitimate science and more of like a how-to, but it's a how-to of how we are these vibrational beings and we get to use sound to help us come into resonance. It is such a fascinating topic. And we structured the conversation in a way that if you didn't read the book, don't worry, you'll be right there with us. We tried to keep you up to speed on all of the things that we're talking about. And I cannot wait to introduce you to the friend that is joining me for this book club. Her name is Debbie Kaen, and wait till you even just hear her voice and spend a little bit of time absorbing her energy. She is fabulous, and I can't wait to introduce you to her. She is a wonderful creator. She has this mission of, which she will tell you about in the episode, but I'm just so fascinated by her and her drive to help women bring forward their children in this life. So I'll let her tell you a little bit more about that, but I love what she's up to. I love the way that it all intersects, and we'll explain all of that to you. Let's jump in. Hello, my friend Debbie. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I was thinking before when I was thinking about reviewing this book with you, I got so excited because you and I think we sort of geek out on similar things. I think that a lot of the things that we kind of feel pulled towards have to do with vibration and frequency and how our state is largely affected by energy. And I feel like we have similar, nerdy parts of us that love this stuff, right?
Yes, a big yes to that. I love understanding more, so then it deepens my practice. Uh, yeah, it give me all the science that explains to me how frequency converts into form, and I'm here for it.
Amen.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. Okay, so before we kind of like dive in, I wanted to give everybody sort of like a glimpse at what the book really actually is, so that we're not just all of a sudden talking about it, because that's what we want to do. But I know that there's going to be people listening that have no idea what we're talking about. So,
Please.
really, essentially, the purpose of the book is to teach the science about tuning forks and how to use them. And the idea is that we are vibrational beings, and we can become very affected, or we can allow ourselves to shift simply because we're exposed to other vibrations. And if you think about it, like our body is similar to like a musical instrument, and every single time that you pick up a musical instrument, you actually tune it before you play it. And as we move through our life, we get out of tune and we are exposed to lots of different things. And then I just think of it like the most beautiful dance of coming into the ways that we tune ourselves. So that can look like a lot of different things. And the way that John Bulow, who wrote this book, Human Tuning, is suggesting that we do it is through tuning forks, or allowing the tuning forks to also deepen the practice of the other things that we do to also bring us into being tuned. So as like a basic for the overview of the book, anything that you want to add to that?
Oh, I think you did great. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So initially, I just thought we could also start by talking about how our business, how this information wildly affects and enhances the business that we're both involved in and what we're doing. So I'll start out, and initially really is just that I'm incredibly dedicated to helping people keep their inner state and to learn how to get the inside environment right, and then being able to witness and see how everything around you falls into place after you're working on the inside environment. And so that's really what I feel incredibly dedicated to, and also with the emphasis about the heart leading in that space. And I love what you're up to and what you're doing and how this interweaves and connects with your business. So tell us a little bit about that and how it connects.
So, my purpose, my wish is to help every mother who wants to conceive to hold her baby and hold her baby in health. And like you said, we're vibrational beings, and we're vibrational beings that are made up of water by molecular count. And we know that vibration moves through the medium of water and structures it. It can structure it in strength, in health, with communication, with fertility, or it can structure it in a degraded state, depending on what is the vibrational input or coding put upon it. So I love to learn about everything, every tool that allows mothers to, or empowers mothers with their vibration that they surround themselves with. So you do it from the inside out, and I like to also do it from the outside in, because we are also reading, our body, our bio water is reading the vibrational inputs that are external to us as well, and mirroring that back structurally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love talking about that. And I love how you made this distinction between the outside in and the inside out. And to me, when you really like dive into it, there's no difference. There's not a difference, right?
Right.
Because when we're getting the environment inside right, it's because of what we're also choosing to expose ourselves outwardly to.
Correct.
And vice versa. It's just like so interconnected. And I love the idea that our bodies are what percentage of our bodies are water?
More than 99.2, 99.5 by molecular count. So I mean, in my world, if anything is 99.5%, I just call it entirely that thing,
100%. 100%. And I love how we've seen how water responds to vibration.
That's right.
On such a high level. Like, I was watching this amazing video where this guy was sitting on a dock and he was playing the guitar, and all of these little bugs that were kind of floating on the top of the water were responding to the different notes he was playing, and you could see this reverberation sound, and it was like the lake was all of a sudden went from really calm, clear, to spots everywhere in the lake every time he would play a note. And it was just beautiful. And I think, that's just showing the evidence that they are vibrating, and water is
resonating.
Yeah, resonating, and a major conductor for what it's receiving with that vibration that the bug is receiving, who's also 99 whatever percent water, right? And just
everything
evidence
is some form of hydrogen. Like, all of three-dimensional form is some form of hydrogen. And so when we talk about everything being connected, all hydrogen is in communication with other hydrogen. Mm-hmm. So, and then we get to experience it through our five senses. That's the beauty of this, like through the study of cymatics, or the man playing his guitar at the water's, edge. That's what's so awesome, is that we are pausing now to take notice.
Yeah.
And allow it to teach us. Mm-hmm. So then how does it communicate? And then if it does communicate in certain ways, how can then we be intentional about our vibrational language, right? And our vibrational communications, knowing that it's in fact informing matter.
Right. And I think meshing your mission and my mission together, we then see, okay, now what are we going to bring into our lives, because we're vibrating at this, because we're structured this certain way. We're going to bring different things into our life because we are, in a sense, tuned, right? Human tuning. We're tuned in this certain manner. And so when we take the time and the effort to come into alignment, or to be tuned, or to be structured, or to be whatever wording you really want to use, it's really getting the inside of us, that environment, in a state so that the way that we resonate with everything around us and what we bring into our awareness, or really what we open our eyes to, because, right, it's all there.
Yeah.
What we can then open our eyes to is different. It's beautiful. So cool. So as far as like what a tuning fork is, I mean, if you've never seen a tuning fork, I guess it's like two prongs of metal that then marry at the bottom with a stem. And with John Bulow's Beaulieu, I say his name right, with his work, he has different types of tuning forks that are all tuned differently. And then he also has some with weights on the top. And the ones that are weighted on the top are intended for the stem of the tuning fork to be touching your body somewhere, like at a bone, or a reflex point, or something like that. And then you can touch it to your body there, and then allow it to come into vibrational alignment by touching your body. And the other ones that are without the weights on the top are simply for sound. So you can use both of them for sound, but the Otto ones with the weights at the top are intended to be able to be placed on your body. So I just kind of thought that I would give that as a visual, because as we're going through and having this conversation, I think a lot of people are like, well, okay, so tuning forks, what the heck? Like, maybe they don't know exactly what to imagine. So before we really kind of dive into our favorites and some of the like really meat of the book, I want to ask you, where did you come across the book, if it's relevant? And also, what are your first reactions about the book? And just kind of like those first drawings, the thing that pulled you to want to be talking about the book or reading the book itself.
I was at an event put on by Kathy Heller, and there was
Mhm.
a woman, it was a live event, and there was a woman in the audience, and she had her tuning forks with her, and she was using them on like members in the audience during breakout session. And she gave me like a 3 second snippet of what it's about, what she's doing. And I had just started using binaural beats online, not only for conception and pregnancy, but for just healing all sorts of things. Like going back, I remember like it triggered a memory for me. Um, a trainer friend of mine had broken his finger, and the doctor had given him some like long healing process to expect. And he went online, found binaural beats that that
Mhm.
use bone, repair bone, and came back at his 2 week checkup and was 99% healed because of his commitment to having his being exposed to the right frequency, right? And anyway, so I saw her doing that and I quickly ordered the book. It's just when you have experienced enough evidence that everything actually exists as frequency before it exists as matter. Like even this was not something hard for me to get because even before that, I knew that science had established that what we see with our eyes is really a compilation of things that have been scanned in about 15 seconds earlier. So everything we're seeing
Mhm.
is a record of something past. So it wasn't like this was just more of the same in a way. Okay,
Yeah.
so everything that I'm holding and I'm smelling and I'm touching and I'm, interacting with is really something that established itself in frequency and now has like printed into three-dimensional form,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So we know if I know that that's true, I'm like, what is the frequency of fertility? What are the tools? And so she's telling me tuning forks. I'm like, let's go. Let's read this book. What is the frequency of gratitude and love and holding your child? Uh,
Mhm.
what is the notes for that so that we can
Mhm.
what are cycles per second for that?
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful. Fantastic. So as far as like for me, when I first came across tuning forks, I was at my sister-in-law's house and she had tons of them. And I was like, and she also has like a Nikola Tesla like biocharger thing that's, I don't know if you've ever seen that, where
I
it's like
have.
this.
How cool that you, I love who you roll with. This is
Yeah.
great.
It's fantastic. And I had no idea. Like I had never had exposure. I didn't have a conversation. I just started picking up these tuning forks and was like, oh my gosh. And then the moment that I put one on my chest bone and took those deep breaths, which this is something that I also have wild questions about for like everyone. But I'm so curious to know because when the moment that I did that, I felt my heart, right? And sometimes, the more that you're trained in heart coherence, the more you're able to drop in quicker. And
Right.
so I didn't know if that was something that everyone feels the moment that they put this on them, or if it's because I have a little bit of that in my day to day practice that then I was able just to drop in so fast. I don't know. Like, do you have a take on that before I continue?
Well, I notice myself as my practice deepens that
Mm-hmm.
I drop in more quickly and with greater depth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do imagine that it's easier to access, right?
Mm-hmm.
The information, the frequency.
Yeah. Well, and I think that when your body has memorized a path to the vibration of coherence, and then you're exposing it to something, be it sound or vibration, that automatically can take you there as well. Because I've also kind of been going back and forth with like just figuring out exactly, I don't know, like, is this somewhat of a shortcut? with heart coherence and so forth. So there's still a lot of things that I'm like really, really excited about to keep learning. And really it's just because it will come from essentially exposing myself to more and more people who might not know what heart coherence is, and exposing them to the tuning forks and asking lots of questions and things
I'm
like
going to
that.
add that I think that whatever is the answer to that question, I don't know if it matters, because
Right.
I think what is the first step to resonance, right? Whether you're using a tuning fork or a meditation or whatever is, right, your tool. I think that it's to become the observer of, right? The honest witness of. So like, it doesn't even matter if you put it to your bone, let's say to your heart center, and you feel nothing and you hear nothing. Just the very act of watching for, right, is tuning you.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree with you 100% too, because I think also like heart coherence is described in lots of different ways across, a lot of different people's experiences. So I think that that's kind of just a beautiful conversation in and of itself. But essentially just knowing that like whatever our favorites are to get to the place where we're tuned is what's important.
yes.
So I met my sister-in-laws and I put this, and then I'm like, okay. And I take a picture of it. It's in my phone. I'm fully intending like to do some research around it. And I don't yet. Right. And then I see my friend Debbie, and she's holding this book, on Instagram. She's holding this up and human tuning this and that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get the book. So I got the book. I immediately started reading it. And when I was reading it, he was telling about in the first couple of pages, he was telling about a time when he was sitting in an anechoic chamber and how he had so much exposure to this. And what that is a chamber that you can go into that blocks out all sound, frequency, vibration, everything. The only thing that is existing inside of there is your own vibration, your own self, your own sounds. And so all of a sudden you can start to hear systems in your body, the whooshing and the whirring and the movement of fluids, and you hear things differently. Well, he starts talking about how he started to notice a sound of his nervous system. And he starts describing how the nervous system sounds and how it sounds different in different people, and also in different circumstances that we're in our life. For example, if we're exposed to something that kind of has us a little bit sitting in a high, a heightened sense, or if we're a person who is high strung, or if we're right, then our tunings of our nervous system is going to sound a little bit of a higher pitch. Well, I'm laying in my bed that night reading this book, and everyone's asleep in the house. The house is so quiet. It's pitch dark except for the light that I have for my book. And I immediately, and before I started reading my book, before I went to bed, I had two things that happened that were just kind of enough to kind of, just kind of tilt your tuning a little bit, or throw you off a little bit into that dissonance. And as I'm laying there, I literally stop reading, stop focusing, stop breathing, and listen. And I hear this high pitch, this super high pitch of my nervous system. And I'm like, oh my word, I can totally hear it. And it's like it's this sound inside of your head, right? So next time you're, alone and it's totally quiet, just listen and see what you can hear. But what I did before I even kept reading, I was like, okay, I'm just going to take some breaths. I'm going to bring myself into heart coherence. I took a few breaths, and then after I felt that feeling of being in heart coherence, I stopped and listened again, and I felt the pitch. I heard the pitch completely change from being high pitched to then low, and a little bit more like harmonious, a little bit less like, And for me, that was it. I was like, oh my word. Because I knew, even though I used heart coherence to tune myself to get there, in that moment, I knew that this is another form of essentially tuning yourself, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you said felt at the same time as heard. It is like a felt hearing.
Yeah.
It's experiential hearing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, so I love the exposure that he talks about, in this anechoic chamber and this experience of being able to, because his experience was he had had an interaction with someone on a train that was not good before he got to the place he was going. He went into the chamber, heard that, and literally just had this thought: I need to tune myself, because he was a musician. So he ran to the music shop that was like, out down the stairs outside, whatever. And he went back up into the chamber, tuned himself, and heard a different sound.
Yeah.
So to me, it was just like, what? This is incredible. You actually can tune yourself.
I think it's so fascinating that people who have like transcendental downloads, like sages from, I don't know, history, right?
Yeah.
Biblical sages, yogis who spend time in ashrams, like they all go into these caves or
Mm,
chambers of sorts, right? And
mhm.
it's amazing that downloads happen in these dark, still, like anechoic chambers.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
like I don't think there's coincidence in that.
Well, even Dispenza, he says, and this is why he says that the best time to meditate would be like 4 a.m.
Ah,
And so he literally says that, like, oh, it would be so great if you could wake up at 4 a.m. and gives you like, okay, meditate right away, do this, da 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 da, and even take a nap later in the day. So that would be like I don't do that. I don't know if you do that, but I don't do that. But the purpose in doing that is because you're essentially being able to be awake and present while everybody else's consciousnesses are sleeping, right?
mm,
So while other people's consciousness are shut down, in other words, you're not trying to meditate during a time when you're absorbing a lot of other people's stuff that they're carrying, right? And that's a lot of that, like being out in nature, and you kind of can walk away from the consciousness of the city, the consciousness of your neighbors or the people around you, whatever it is. So I think that's kind of an interesting point too. It's just being able to truly just be with just you and your experience and whatever you're calling in.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just more of the same, right?
Yeah, more of the same again and again, over and over.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what is your, like, I don't know, one of your favorite parts of the book.
Um, I love the whole book, but I do have a couple of pages that I've tagged as loving extra. Um, so one is, okay. So for me, it's so interesting because I go in these rhythms of learning, learning, learning. And then I'm like, okay, so then what is the application? Because yes, energy is so real, but I am energy in form. And so my form is here to support me in participating with my energy and playing in energy. So then in this part of the book, should I give a page number? It's on page
Yeah.
106 under shifting awareness. And he gives such simple action steps, explaining, just like you said, how to listen inward and to feel into what are the notes that are playing internally. And you're just, again, watching, you're just observing. And if it doesn't feel like the notes you're internally playing are the ones that you need for what you are trying to achieve, you can then choose, right, from your tuning forks, the state that you actually want to be in. So if you are, for example, in beta and you want to access theta, and he so gently asks you to move to the next dropped in state, right? Then
Yeah. Tell me the page number one more time.
146.
146. Okay. Okay, keep going. So he so gently asks you to move.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah.
So he tells you, for example, if you are in beta and you want to move into theta, he doesn't have you move immediately from beta to theta.
Yeah.
Like, okay, and then we're going to go to alpha, and then we're going to go to theta. And the whole process is just to be the observer. So you play the tuning fork, let's say you put it to your knee, and then you play it to your ear, and you then watch yourself as your internal note comes to match what is playing at your ear. And you are now resonating with the note of alpha, right? With the frequency of alpha. And then you can do that again, touch it to your knee, and then play it again, and then tune yourself to theta. So you're an observer of your current frequency, right? You listen within, and then you can tune with simple action steps that don't even really require time, effort, energy, just a moment of awareness, of participation with your internal frequency, and it shifts you in, and you can just choose. It's like a menu, right? And if you're wrong, you can choose again too.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that, because for me, it's like when you play with frequency, or when you play in the field, for me, that is you playing with God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that God's relationship with us is, and if you don't want to call it God, you want to call it the field, whatever it is, it's really,
Mm-hmm.
I
We
laugh.
get it. Yeah.
I laugh at these names because
Yeah.
we're like trying to even put something like a definition on something that is by nature infinite, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So fine. But for me, access with relating with God is meant to be simple, is meant to be light and playful. So whenever a teacher comes and offers another tool that is simple,
Mm-hmm.
I fall so in love with it, because I'm like, yes, this must be the way, right? Because it's not
Yeah.
meant to be it's not meant to be a difficult challenge of overcoming stuckness and just like a child and like a mother's love for her child, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It takes you no seconds. There is no obstacle to dropping into love for and with your child, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That. So this feels like that to me. These tuning
Yeah.
forks are this simple access tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my favorite part, shifting awareness.
Well, I think I love what you're talking about, because A, the gentleness of which you're speaking of, and B, the simple part of shifting. Because I think a lot of people tend to walk around, and if they haven't been exposed to the idea that they can shift by using whatever means, it doesn't matter what means you're using to shift. But if you haven't been exposed to the idea that you can shift, I think that keeping it really, really simple and saying all that it is a little bit of exposure to something that kind of can set you into a place where you actually want to be, to where you can feel what you want to feel. And keeping that simple, keeping that in a place where it's like, okay, it's a really easy shift. Because based on how you're vibrating, based on how whatever frequency you're feeling, you're also feeling, emotions, and you're thinking thoughts, and all of that comes from the way that we're being essentially tuned. And so if shifting is really simple and really, really easy, and you actually start to know that that's something that you have access to, then you start to recognize more often when you have come into a space where you need that shift, where you're craving that shift.
Yeah, or you want to play with what could shifting look like?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, what
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Okay, I'm experiencing this frequency and this is the result of that. And like, what if I play with this other frequency? What could be the result from that?
Yeah. So something that I thought would be fun to bring up from the book is this quote that says, and I didn't write down the page that this actual quote is on, but where we're going is page 55. in just a little bit. But this quote says, a fundamental principle of sound healing is that physical, emotional, and mental symptoms are being generated by an underlying energy field. Thus, if we change the energy field, then physical, emotional, and mental behavior patterns will also change. And so far we've kind of been talking about tuning as simply sort of more of that maybe emotional, because physical, even though we're touching on physical, what we really can be touching on as well with physical is the way that our bodies can actually heal. Our bones, our joints, our posture, our organs, our mental faculties, everything can truly be affected by the frequency that we're resonating with. Yeah. And on page 55, he talks a lot about nitric oxide being an absolute factor in this healing. So just trying to wrap your brain around like what this is, like what's nitric oxide? Because when you're using tuning forks, it promotes the release of nitric oxide inside of your body, right? And their research has proven that when you use these biosonic tuning forks, then it resonates through your whole body and it causes a spike in nitric oxide. So what is nitric oxide? Nitric oxide is this molecule that's created by nitrogen, by a nitrogen atom bound to an oxygen atom. It is made in our cells and released into the surrounding tissues as gas. The release of nitric oxide by our cells is termed as puffing by scientists to describe the rising and falling of this gas. The puffing cycle is like a wave which takes 3 minutes to rise and 3 minutes to fall. When cells are puffing nitric oxide in natural rhythmic cycles, we experience these benefits. And then they list enhances the cell vitality, vascular flow, and heart healing, destroys bacteria and viruses at a micro level, which naturally enhances our immune system and increases our ability to prevent and fight infections, increases resistance to stress and greater levels of energy and stamina, sharpens our mental clarity, and diminishes states of depression due to balancing the autonomic nervous system. And it also improves the digestion and natural cleansing. So I just loved that collection of benefits and sort of trying to wrap your mind around like, oh, nitric oxide. Okay, this is what's actually happening when, we come into a coherent state based on what frequency we're exposing ourselves to.
Right. Yeah. It was science behind the Kundalini breath,
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. A lot of the things that he talks about in the book around healing really for me were like, oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah. When you're saying, you're talking about the emotions, but then it's also the thinking. Is that what you said?
So physical, emotional, and mental.
Yeah. So I think what my understanding is that all of those things, your feelings are waves of energy, right? Your thoughts are waves of energy. Every your physical, obviously, create waves of energy. And what I'm understanding is that there is a sound to all of these waves of energy.
100%.
So when you use the tuning fork to listen in to your internal sound, you're hearing the frequency, the sound expression of the thoughts, of the feeling, of the physical manifestations, the symptoms, right? And so that is giving you another way to become aware, to assess, right? What is the state from which you are creating? And then if it's not the state that you want to be creating from, like, that's okay. We're just staying as an observer. That's all we're a witness. And we look at the menu of states that are available to create from. And if let's say being in prolonged beta is not serving us, and that is the high pitched, like wired, jacked up, like, fight or flight. and we're like, okay, I think I'd like to now see what creating from rest and repair sounds like.
Yeah.
We use a tuning fork to kind of like echo back to us that we are now in that, we are tuned to that frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like having a stethoscope that is, or any monitor that's letting us know, a heart coherence monitor. It's just information that is showing us, right? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you are now in that state. And then watching, okay,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
what am I creating from here? And letting the three-dimensional world inform you back,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's well said. And I just feel like I love the way that in the book he talks a lot about exposing yourself to the right things, but then he talks about part of his protocol that he's giving you in the book is to let the sound resonate deeply inside of you and then to listen to what your body has to teach you for healing. So it's really like more accessible. He's really making it so accessible for us to learn what our body is. You know, if our body could sit down and write a letter to you, what would it be saying? A lot of times we don't take the time to listen. We don't take the time to be in tune. But I love the way that he walks you through being able to do that.
Or almost like if your body were to compose a song,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
what does that song play like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love there's a part where he talks about I'll just read this little section to you. This is on page 18. He says, I began to think about the dynamics of energy field shifting while working with patients with multiple personality disorders. I worked with a woman, 11, um, 11 documented personalities. Over a period of several years, I learned each personality and her anchors for shifting between personalities. One personality would come to my office with a cold, and when shifted into another personality, the cold would disappear. We see similar shifts with patients who have cancer who go into remission. One day they have cancer, and the next day it is gone. From an energy perspective, remission can take place instantly based on a field shift. When the new field emerges, endogenous biochemical cascades that destroy cancer cells appear naturally as part of the new field.
I had that same part highlighted.
Did you? Of course you did.
Any more evidence,
Yeah. Yeah.
that we are actually energy and not, I mean, the body is an expression of the energy. That's what it is.
Right.
We are the body, but this personality is expressing one energetic field. And if I have a different personality, it will then express differently through the same hands, heart, legs, you know? I mean, I don't, do we need a laboratory for that?
I think there's essentially a need for that simply because I think that when we're in it, I think it's really difficult to actually figure out what is happening inside of you because it also comes with letting go. You know, there's a part of us that we have to let go of to be able to shift into different frequencies. There's parts of us that make us up that have created the frequency state that we're in the first place. And so a lot of the times when we're listening to something or hearing something, we're trying to understand our body talking to us. You know, I have something that I've been working on that I'm like trying to let go of, you know, and learning a new personality part of that. And it is a surrendering. There is a major surrendering because there's a recognition to saying that there is a part of you that is essentially blocking another place that you want to be.
So I have a reframe for that.
Okay.
When there's a new self, for example, and you feel like there's a letting go or a shedding happening, that is very painful. And your body, your spirit that is whole will naturally struggle with that and resist that because it doesn't want to leave an aspect of its spirit here, knowing that it's going there, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So rather than this sense of disassociating or dismembering from that part of self, we integrate it, we love it, we thank it for serving us in the season that it was meant to serve, and we let it know, just like we do, like we graduated from being 7 to being 10 to being 15 in our 20s, you know, but all of those parts of me come with me as I move into 40. You know, I love them. I thank them for, and of course they get to come with me into 40. They're the reason that I am here. You know, they showed up for me in their season, in their moment. Yeah. And so rather, I love that version, that part, that age of me, right? Yeah. And I bring her as a audience member or a passenger of the ride rather than the driver of the ride, but she's integrated into the current self. She gets to come with, you know, and there's but so then there's less, there's no pain. I don't need to, it's not that I'm mourning a death of some aspect of myself. Right? That aspect is left behind.
Yeah, I like the shift from thinking that it was something that was wrong to something that served you, and being able to love that space.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the truth, right? Time where that was for you. And then when it is no longer for you, we're not mad at it. We're just like, hey, you know, like, this is such a silly example, but if I was, and also you might need that aspect of self again. Yeah. And you let her know, like, hey, you hang in the background. And if it comes up, I love knowing that you're still here. So it's like if you have a toolbox or a cutlery set, right? And at one moment you need a spoon, and now you've like moved on, you're enjoying the next portion, right, of your meal, and it requires a fork. Like, the spoon just sits on the side. We don't need to throw it away. You're not, I don't know. Like,
it's really, I think that the harder part of it is learning to pick up the fork when we are so accustomed to picking up the spoon. That's the part that I feel like is the retraining. That's the part of like, and that's where I think that when we're being tuned into, that's where I really feel like that all of this really comes into play in such a really loud, beautiful level of being able to say, like, okay, now we get to set the patterning, just like we were talking about with, you know, letting the frequency and the vibration exist first, and then it comes into being. Like, we're going to create that state inside of you and make it a lot easier to pick up that fork, because of what you're feeling already inside will naturally match, you know, the action that you're wanting to take in moving forward.
Yes. And then also through time and practice, as you do that, then just by hearing that frequency, there's an association. So you, like you said, the way you drop into heart coherence so quickly, right? Because you have knowledge and practice. This is another, like you said, is it a cheat sheet, right? Because because now you created associations, and every cell of your body just now knows how to play.
Yeah.
Right, that frequency with whichever tuning fork it is that you pick up.
Yeah. There's so many things I love. Like, a few more things that I love. I love how he talks about music intervals, and how the interval in between the notes is what allows you to come into something that's different. So, for example, he talks about, you know, if you're wanting to experience daily drive and motivation, use this tuning fork and this tuning fork, and the interval between them helps you get to that point. Just like you were saying, what are the notes for creation, right? Well, he literally has notes for creation and creativity and healing and nervous system balance, well-being, higher states of consciousness, lifting depression, life direction, calming anxiety, loss of grief, digestive balance, intuition, you know, and it's like this incredible catalog that you just get to sit with and say, Oh my word. Well, what do I want to play with? Where do I want to try to create? And you can look at these, different sort of recipes that he has laid out for you to then be able to try to bring that forward in your life. So you can pick up whatever piece of cutlery you decide you want.
So good. Yes.
Yeah, that's so good.
And
Um,
that there's no consequence. There's no side effect.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Feels so beautiful. It's like, and let's say you get it wrong.
yeah.
I didn't like that. You can just
Yeah.
again choose differently. There's no other part of your system that is being negatively affected, long term, short term, nothing.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's how you know you're in play.
Yeah, for sure. What
Yeah.
is it that you feel like you're the most excited to play with inside of what maybe you were exposed to with this book? Is there anything that like just piqued you that you're like, oh my word, I want to play there?
Well, right now, we're getting ready for our launch for the fertility garments, May 9th. And as I'm learning what that looks like, what that means like, this is my first time bringing a product into the world. But I am playing with the idea of binaural beats, and that's where I am most interested. I'm talking with a doctor right now on what are really the most effective, like you said, cheat sheet beats
Yeah.
uh, for creation of life. How can we move mothers who want to call in their babies easily, playfully, joyfully into fertile frequencies?
Mm.
And so it's everything this book has to offer, everything all binaural beat research has to offer in support of that.
Yeah. I love the way that you use language around what you're doing. It's very eloquent the way that you form the language around what you're helping these mothers attain. And I think of being able to expose them to these sounds, and this goes for no matter what it is that you're trying to achieve. But it's like a lot of times what we're doing is we're spending time in the opposite of what we're trying to bring in. So for this example, it might be like fear or sadness or something that they haven't had that creation. And of course, like that's not where you want them to dwell, but exposing them to the frequency of creation and of the abundance and everything that you're trying to help them create, they they become more adept at that, at feeling that frequency, and then they would know when they slip out of it into the old pattern of whatever that is, whatever that old pattern was for them that was sort of keeping them from the frequency that wasn't aligned, right?
Something that I love is that everything is itself and its opposite. Like for a thing to exist, its opposite necessarily exists. And so whenever I talk with mothers who are either conceiving or expecting, and they talk to me about being whatever it is, feeling the notes of fear, shame, guilt,
Yeah.
whatever, it to me is evidence of its opposite also existing. And it's like, it is,
Mm,
um, to me, it's like, it just shows me you're already there. You're
yeah.
already just got to flip the coin. So
That is
don't
so
even
well
worry.
said.
We're good. That's actually the best information you can share.
Okay, how much freedom did that just bring anyone out there that heard that? Essentially, that the opposite exists. If
Nec-
there is something that's existing that, ah, Debbie, I
it's
love what you said
okay.
so much. There's just so much freedom around being able to say, wow, I'm so happy that this is actually here. That means that something else that's completely opposing it can also exist.
Yeah. Another version of that is I also love this is like when you pull when you're about to shoot an arrow and you pull the
Hmm.
bow back, and
Hmm.
it's the way you pull back is proportional to its launch.
Yes.
And so when you're in the pullback and you like, it feels like, oh, it's so, I'm pulling back. It's so, when
Yeah.
I launch, but just recognizing that this is showing you actually the degree to which you're about to fall forward. The fall back and the fall forward are mirrors of each other. So
Yeah.
to start to relate to whatever it is, the discomfort, the struggle, the disconnect, or whatever, as actually just the preview
Mm-hmm.
of what you're about to access, and that it's already
Yeah.
there. It's necessarily coming. It exists already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, like, beautiful.
It's
Just
fun.
beautiful. It's so, so fun and so freeing to feel like, okay, hey, we're okay. Wherever you're at is okay. That's so beautiful. Okay, something that I feel really excited about. Well, there's so many things. So, like, for me, I feel like I'm so excited to try tuning on all of my family. When people have been visiting me, I'm like tuning like my nieces, my little nephews, just tuning. And it is so absolutely stunning to watch a 4-year-old lay on the ground and be so overtaken by a vibration that I'm simply touching to their chest and exposing them to, and the way that they just melt and they're like, oh, it feels good to them, it's beautiful. So I love that. I'm also really playing with it in the arena of just like, my father-in-law is going through a major health challenge right now around, having a germ cell tumor. And, it's a lot. And so we're really experimenting with lots of things, and, using the tuning forks and and intentionally purchasing like there's a gem foot on the bottom of the tuning fork that you can choose the properties of the stone that is on the bottom of your tuning fork. And so you can use it to bring in different things. And that's also like really a whole nother level of this. It's just fascinating. It's so, so
Yeah,
fun.
first of all, may he see easy and quick healing,
Thank
and
you.
whatever it's coming to show him, may he see it.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we have in the fertility wrap, we have a pocket where we invite mothers to put in crystals, because same thing, Mother Earth's DNA just coming
Mm-hmm.
to support, right? Like to genetically
Mm.
contribute to whatever is the creative process.
Debbie, so cool.
It's very cool. It's very cool. We're so supported. And we're also so lucky to be living in a time where we're able to understand all the things. So all the ways that like we're supported energetically, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
down to the stones.
Yeah, down to the stones. I love it. Okay, so Debbie, there are so many things inside of this conversation and inside of this book, places that I like want to play so bad. I love what he talks about with, you know, he talks about substance use and how it can help overcome like substance use. He talks about the purpose of these incredible, I don't know if you tripped out too, like when he's talking about it essentially can do the things that psychedelics can do, but in the arena of actually doing it with a better purpose. For me, I'm like, wow, because I don't love the idea of psychedelics, and everybody has a different opinion with that. That's okay. But I love the way that he talks about it having a purpose. Let's see, I'm trying to see what he says. He essentially, first of all, he's talking about the person realizing that there are alternate realities available through sound. It's easier to let go of the cycle of trauma, abuse, and drugs. It's not uncommon to hear alcoholic patients say after a Fibonacci sound treatment that it was better than drinking, or to hear a drug addict say, wow, that was some high. And then he talks about this alternate reality transition and having the right environment and a method of transition and actually understanding the purpose. For me, being able to play in those arenas, because I feel like I'm stepping into different places in breath work. And I like doing it in a form where I have all of my faculties about me, if that makes sense. So those are some things that I'm like really excited to explore. I don't know, like there's so many more things inside the book. I mean, I'm sure you agree.
Yes. And yeah, through sound, through breath, through meditation, the brain and body scans are showing that yes, it is like we are on drugs.
Yeah, well, you're actually just releasing your own DMT, but you're doing it where you still have your powers of self-governing. You're
Yes.
still completely in your own control and you're not allowing the outside influence to come in. To me, that's an important thing. But like I said, everybody has their own opinion.
Playing within water research too. Um, One of the women that I study with, her name is Veda Austin, and she does the crystallography method where she, shows water images or talks to water. And then she has a method that she crystallizes the water and it will communicate back with her.
Mm.
And it's divine. So her husband played with plant medicine and water and started writing ayahuasca and then would eat the ice because this is based on
Oh,
other students of hers who were on healing journeys would share words with water that, like, I remember a woman, she had like a neuromuscular disease, and so she wrote the word communication on
mm,
her water petri dish, and then she would let it freeze and she would eat it because she felt like her body had stopped communicating with itself, and
mm.
she started to see healing happen. And then her children, and maybe other children were starting to eat the ice also. And they kept saying, Mommy, it's good for you. It's like medicine. And so her husband begins this plant research project with the water
Mm.
and starts talking about ayahuasca with it and taking it. And he starts to report that he's having psychedelic effects.
Wow.
Yeah. So they are now,
Without actually taking the medicine, without actually taking the plant medicine.
and it, like, to me, it's not a hard even reach because it's like homeopathy, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
My kids homeopathic pellets for everything and we see results. So like this is not even difficult for me to, it's not a stretch of my understanding. But anyway, they're now doing more research, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
explore and understand that further. But yeah,
Well,
so
I've seen some of the things that you've posted around that blow my mind. And so that also helps me in my listening as I'm hearing you say the things that you're saying, simply because of the way that the water represents the form or the image that you give it after you freeze it, like literally pictures or names, and it becomes like a frozen image of what you exposed it to.
the
And
frequency, it's playing the sound of your thoughts, it's playing the
yeah.
of your feeling. And it's just another form of communication that we are now able to understand as communication,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Hmm. Bringing us full circle. It's all this stuff about like it doesn't really matter the mode that we get there. What really matters is simply that we are, I mean, I guess, right? That we're just trying, that we're playing in the field, that we're deciding and learning how to shift, and we're learning things about ourselves as we go. And again, like being gentle with ourselves, and I love your approach. Like if it goes wrong, like is it really wrong? Can it really even go wrong?
You can, and you can choose differently, but um, participating with your energy, um, like as this curious observer, this little kid,
Mhm. Mhm.
you're just learning, like, okay, so what are the frequencies from which I am creating my current,
Yeah.
three-dimensional existence? And what are the different ways? Like, just like, what is the water reflecting to me? What are the tuning forks telling me? And then let me choose differently.
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, 100%. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to just tell everybody where they can find you because like I don't know if you're listening along and you're hearing Debbie's voice and the resonance of what she brings to the table is just I always love our interactions, Debbie, so much. And so if people are looking for you and they've also had their interest spiked around the being fertility garments and the different things that you are putting out into the world, where do they find you?
Thank you. And first, let me say I feel the same every time we meet and we speak and we share. So thank you. We are launching on May 9. Our website is www.being.cc. That's the name of the company, Being. And we have an Instagram, Being Fertility Garments. You can find us there. Right now, it's just signing up for a newsletter, but from May 9th, we'll be open for purchase and full interaction. We're just learning the way to that right now. But we cannot wait. And my name is Debbie Kaen. If anybody wants to email me, it can be debbie@being.cc.
Beautiful.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited about all the growth that's coming.
Yes, the same. I love that. Such a good conversation to be having. And if you're also looking for the human tuning forks, the Biosonics website, all that stuff, I will link all of that in the show notes. And also there's an incredible amount of resources on the Biosonics website. That's fantastic. So I'll make sure that all of that's linked. Thank you so much, Debbie, for being here and for having this exchange today. You're fantastic.
Thank you.
Love you, girl. All right, my friend, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you had some really incredible takeaways from the conversation that we had. And just a reminder to make sure that you rate, subscribe, and review the podcast. And be sure to check the show notes for all of the links that we talked about in the episode today. Also, before I leave you, I want to share a quote with you by Edgar Cayce. He says, "Sound will be the medicine of the future." That's something interesting to think about. Until next time, my friend.